You know, there are moments in life that change everything, moments that shake you, wake you, and make you see the world in a way you never did before. One night when I was completely alone, no lights, no noise, no distractions, something happened that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. I felt a presence, a power, a peace that filled the whole room. And then I saw him, Jesus. I'm telling you, this was not a dream, not a story, not a vision. It was real as the ground we stand on. He stood there, calm, strong, full of light, and he said something to me that I will never forget, something about America. He told me that America was chosen for greatness, for leadership, for truth, but that we had forgotten who blessed us in the first place. He said, you must remind them that freedom is sacred, that truth is not for sale, that faith built this nation. When he spoke, it was like fire and peace all at once. I realized this message wasn't just for me. It was for every single person who still believes in the promise of this country. And tonight, I'm going to tell you exactly what he said and why it matters now more than ever. Because what Jesus told me about America will decide whether we rise again or lose everything that made us the greatest nation on earth. Stay with me. You don't want to miss what comes next. That night I was alone, completely alone. No noise, no light, no distractions. The kind of silence that makes you think about everything all at once. I wasn't expecting anything to happen, but something did. The air around me felt heavy, filled with a strange calm, like time itself had stopped. Then I felt it. A presence so strong, so real, that every doubt, every fear disappeared in an instant. I looked up, and there he was, Jesus. Not in a dream, not in a thought, but right there, standing in front of me, surrounded by a light that didn't blind, but embraced. His eyes were full of peace, power, and something deeper, love mixed with purpose. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. He didn't need to introduce himself. I knew exactly who he was. When he began to speak, his voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of eternity. He said, I am here because America has forgotten who it is. His words cut through me, not with anger, but with truth. He spoke of how this nation was built on faith, real faith, the kind that prayed before it acted, the kind that believed freedom came from God, not from men. He said America had been chosen for something great, but that greatness had been traded for noise, greed, and pride. I saw flashes, families arguing, churches closing, people chasing pleasure instead of purpose, he said. They have lost their fire. They have forgotten who blessed them. And I felt it, the sadness in his tone, the hope still burning beneath it. He said, America's strength was never its wealth or power. It was its heart, its belief that one nation under God could shine as a light for the world. But that light was fading. Then he looked at me, his eyes steady and full of meaning, and said, tell them what you've seen. Tell them that I still have a plan for America, but they must remember me. I could feel his words settle deep inside, a mix of love, warning, and purpose. It wasn't just for me. It was for every soul still listening, every person still holding on to the belief that America can rise again through faith. When he spoke about America, his tone carried both pride and sorrow. He said that America was chosen with purpose, not by accident, not by history alone, but by divine design. He said it was meant to be a nation that carried light into the world, a land where truth could live freely, where faith could breathe, and where people could stand strong under God without fear. He said the founding of America wasn't just political, it was spiritual. Men and women once prayed before they wrote laws. They sought God's guidance before they took action. And that was why the country rose higher than any other in such a short time. It was blessed because it remembered the source of its blessing. He said that America was chosen to protect freedom, not just for itself, but for others who couldn't defend their own. He reminded me that this country was meant to be a refuge for the weak, for the faithful, for those who believed that liberty was a gift from heaven, not a favor from government. But he also said that somewhere along the way, the heart of that mission was forgotten. He said they began to believe that their power came from themselves. They forgot the giver and started worshiping the gift. Those words echoed deep inside me, heavy with truth. He spoke of the beauty of the American spirit, bold, brave, generous, and how it was meant to reflect his own heart. He said, I gave them abundance so they could share it. I gave them strength so they could protect the innocent. I gave them freedom so they could honor me in everything they do. Then his voice grew firm as he said, but when they turn their freedom against me, their blessing becomes their burden. He told me that America's calling was not just to be powerful, but to be good, to lead by faith, not by fear, to raise truth higher than politics, and to remember that real greatness comes from humility before God. He said the nation still has a divine purpose, but it can only fulfill it if it remembers who chose it and why. When he spoke of what America had forgotten, his tone became heavy, not with anger but with grief. He said, they remember my name, but they have forgotten my ways. Those words struck deep. He said the people still speak of faith, still quote scripture, still gather in churches, but their hearts have drifted from what truly matters. They seek blessings without obedience, prosperity without gratitude, and freedom without truth. He said that this was the great danger. A nation that once bowed before God now bows before comfort, pride, and distraction. He said, they fight each other, not realizing that the real enemy is the spirit of division that has blinded them. He showed me visions of people shouting across screens, families broken by politics, children growing up without hope or guidance. He said, they are building towers of noise and calling it progress, but they are forgetting the foundation that holds them up. I could feel his sorrow as he spoke about how truth had become something people choose, not something they honor. He said that lies have become more popular than wisdom because they sound easier to believe. He said, they are trading conviction for convenience and calling it freedom. He told me that America was being tested, that this was not just a political struggle, but a spiritual one. He said darkness was creeping in not through violence alone, but through apathy, through the slow turning away of hearts that once burned bright for what was right. He said, they are forgetting that freedom costs faith, that peace costs prayer, that unity costs humility. He said this was the warning. When a nation forgets who blessed it, the blessing begins to fade. He said the soul of America is at stake, not its borders, not its economy, but its heart. The greatest danger, he said, was not from outside forces, but from within, from a people who have stopped listening to truth, who have stopped seeking what is eternal, and who have begun to trust in themselves more than in the one who gave them life. Then his voice softened, filled with compassion that felt endless. He said, it is not too late. Those words came like light breaking through a storm. He spoke of renewal, of restoration, of a chance for America to rise again if it remembers where its strength truly comes from. He said that faith is not lost, only sleeping, and that the fire that once made this nation strong still burns beneath the surface. He said, if they humble themselves and seek me, I will heal their land. I could feel hope in his words, a promise that what was broken could still be rebuilt, that what was forgotten could be remembered again. He said that the path to renewal begins not in government halls or powerful offices, but in hearts. He said, it begins when fathers pray again, when mothers teach again, when children learn to love truth again. He said that every revival starts with one heart that turns back to God. He spoke a unity of people coming together not through fear or anger, but through faith, compassion, and courage. He said that real strength is found when people stand together for what is right, not when they fight over who is right. He said that America could be renewed if its people stop looking for leaders to save them and start looking to God to guide them. He said, "The light that made America great is not political, it is spiritual." He spoke of schools that would teach virtue again, of homes filled with prayer instead of noise, of churches that would once more stand boldly for truth instead of silence for comfort. He said renewal will come when people choose forgiveness over bitterness, service over selfishness, and truth over popularity. He said, "Tell them that hope is not gone. It is waiting to be believed in again." He said that faith will rebuild what fear has torn apart, and love will do what laws cannot. He said that America was meant to be a nation that shines with the light of heaven, and that light can burn bright again if the people are willing to turn their hearts back to where it all began. He looked at me with a gaze that felt like it carried the weight of the whole world, and he said, "Now it's time to act." His words weren't loud, but they carried authority that demanded a response. He said that faith without action is empty, that belief must be proven in how people live, speak, and stand. He said, "Tell them that I have given them everything they need, strength, wisdom, freedom, but they must use it for what is right." He spoke of courage, of standing firm when truth is mocked, of holding to light when the world prefers darkness. He said that every person has a part to play, that no one is too small, no voice too quiet, no prayer too weak to matter. He said that the call to action begins with conviction, with people refusing to be silent about what is good and right. He said, "Do not wait for others to move, be the first to stand." He spoke of men and women who once risked everything for truth, who stood for faith when it was costly, who built families, communities, and a nation on prayer and hard work. He said that same spirit must rise again, that America cannot be saved by comfort but by courage. He said the world is watching America, waiting to see if the light will shine again or fade away. He said, I chose this nation to show the world that righteousness exalts a people. He told me that if the people stand together, if they forgive one another, if they rebuild what hatred has broken, then nothing will stop them from becoming stronger than ever before. He said that every act of kindness, every prayer, every stand for truth adds to the rising light. He said, "Tell them to be bold. Tell them to love without fear. Tell them to stand for what is right even when it costs them." His final words burned in my heart, that America's greatness was never about power, but about people who believed in something higher than themselves, who refused to let fear silence faith, and who stood unashamed under the banner of God and truth.